Okay, welcome. Today I'm going to be offering a reflection about boarding school and sex, and boarding school syndrome and sex. So, enjoy. So I was asked by one of my subscribers, I believe it was Oliver Green, so thank you for the question, Oliver, just about boarding school syndrome and sex. And I'm not entirely sure, because I've got the word sex in here, whether it might be taken down from YouTube, so if so I might need to post it onto my website. So what I'm going to do today, I've made some notes here about some of my reflections. So I'm just almost finished my second book about boarding school syndrome, and in it I talk quite a bit about sex and my own sexual experiences, and I thought I'd just share some of my insights or some of the things that I've learned. So for me, first thing really with sex, I mean, you know, as a teenager, I had a lot of sexual energy. You know, I went to boarding school just after my 11th birthday, and I went into puberty at the end of my 11th year. So I was quite a young and mature boy. Most boys, it's more 12 or 13, maybe 13, 14. So age 11, that's when I started to go into puberty. And age 12, I had a lot of sexual energy. And for me, there was such a shame, and this is what I'll kind of go into. There was such a shame around sex. And yet, when I first, age 12, before I felt that shame, it was like, it felt lovely. All of this energy, this vibrancy is like, this sexual energy flowing through me. And then for me, I had a liaison age 12 with another boy, and then I was questioned. He shared that with someone else in the dormitory, and then that third person then questioned me, saying, "Oh, did this happen?" And I was like, "Oh my God," I was horrified that it could get out, so I denied it. And after that, it was like, right, I just deny that part of myself. So, how am I going to kind of talk about this? So for me, this is kind of the first thing about sex and boarding school syndrome is there's this disconnect for us as ex-boarders, is that there's this disconnect between our hearts and sex, because we've learned to suppress our emotions, to suppress our love. Then when we make love, when we have sex as adults, then often there is that disconnect, that it's just a sexual act, but there's no joy there, there's no love there. And I think that's a common trait for ex-boarders, is that we can make love, we can have sex, but there's no connection to our hearts, and there's very little pleasure there for a lot of us. And reading the book by Naomi Wolf called Vagina, which is a great book for both men and women, and really recommend reading it. She talks about some research which has shown that when we suffer trauma, when women suffer trauma, then that is often stored in their vagina, and then that then is connected, the vagina is connected to their brains. So it's like we're traumatized at school. Some people are traumatized at school, boarding school, and then for women it's like they're storing that in their vaginas, and therefore it's kind of means that sex isn't pleasurable. And part of the work that Naomi Wolf talks about is that it's important for us to release that, and it is possible to release that trauma. But until we do, then sex is not pleasurable, certainly for women. And my query, as I've just said, is like, I don't really feel that sex is that pleasurable for men either, because of the stigma. So what do I talk about? The stigma. So for me, the stigma is, that shame that we feel around sex. So, coming into the school rules at my school and, other boarding school, if you had sex at school, you were expelled. And as I share in my book about rules, is we learn these rules, these kind of unwritten rules, but also the written rules. The unwritten rules were things like, I can't show my emotions, or I have to be careful about trusting other people, or, I can't cry in front of others. And the written ones were, you can't have sex. The thing is that most of those unwritten rules, and I therefore question whether the written ones too, when we leave school, whether we still have them. And, I've spoken to others about this, ex-boarders, that often they still have these beliefs there. They still have the belief that I can't trust others, or, I can't show my emotions. We still have them in our 30s, our 40s, years after we've left school. So my question is, do we therefore still have the belief that sex is wrong? It's punishable. So therefore, when, we're in our 20s, our 30s, we've left school, we have sex, it's like, my question is, do we still therefore have that shame that there's something wrong? We don't know what it is. We know that it should be pleasurable, but actually, this is wrong. And it is punishable in some ways. And we don't know why, but it's because it's kind of gone unconscious. So that's, for me, pretty key there. That, we have that shame. So when we make love, we somehow feel, there's something wrong with it. And I feel that is why, as men and women, we often the sexual act, we try and get over it quickly. It's like, right, got to have sex, but it's like, it's a quick act rather than a pleasurable, just relaxed and joyful act. Leading from there, I think I could probably write a book on this, so I'll try and keep this reasonably short. But from there also, for us certainly as men, self-pleasuring, masturbation. I didn't have a door really on anything, like didn't have my own room until I was 17. So from the age of 11 through till 16, I had I had a door when I was 16, but before that time I had no door. So I still masturbated, and we all did. But we had to just be really private. It had to be quick. So I think this then adds into the question about sex, is that we've trained ourselves over the years to be really quick. So when we come to the sexual act, when we're in our 20s, 30s and older, it's, again, we've trained our nervous system to be quick. And, it's like, it's not relaxed. And therefore, for me, sex, therefore, is not relaxed. So it takes some training to retrain ourselves. Again, that's a video in itself about retraining ourselves. But I feel that, we've trained ourselves to be, kind of quite secretive. And again, it's that disconnect from love and sex. It's like we have the sexual act, but there's no love, there's no relaxation, there's no joy there as well. The next thing I would say to talk about is to do with the lover archetype. So I do men's circles every 2 weeks, and for the last 8 months, I think it is, 6 months, around the archetypes. And what I've noticed working with ex-boarders and within myself is that, it's made up of 4 main archetypes which make up the psyche. So our inner workings as men and women: a king or queen, warrior, warrioress, magician, and lover. And I see ex-boarders, our main issue is around the lover. So the lover energy is to do with connection with others. It's about sensitivity. It's about spontaneity. It's about, kind of looking at nature going, oh my God, how beautiful it is. It's like looking at the grass and just loving life. And, that's that joy, hugging others, things like that. And in boarding school, all of those things, spontaneity, joyfulness, it was like, no, hey, be quiet. No, that's not acceptable. What's wrong with you? You're gay. Any form of exuberance is insulted. And so I feel, that lover energy is suppressed. It goes into shadow, and the shadow of the lover is the addict. And how many of us as ex-boarders go into addictions, workaholism. It's one of the things I struggled with, drinking, drugs, pornography, and therefore, I feel really important for us to reawaken that connection, and that's part of the healing journey. And it's like the body is, it can be pleasurable just to stroke ourselves, and that's a practice you can do. It's like, just reawaken the feeling body, and therefore that helps. When we come to the sexual act, making love, it's like allowing our bodies to awaken. In most of us as men, and it's not just ex-boarders, we just focus on the penis. We don't focus on the rest of the body. And yeah. So I think that's another key, is like to know that this lover archetype is suppressed. So it's important for us to be spontaneous, to be creative, to spend time just enjoying life. And that's partly, enjoying our lovemaking. So that kind of comes back to the earlier point about sex and masturbation. Is like, it used to be really quick, but the very act of lovemaking, especially for a woman, she loves slow. She wants touch, and all of these things that we've just learned that, I have to do everything quickly. I have to, can't touch, It's like, no, that's a woman wants slow. She wants touch. I mean, in the Taoist tradition, man is like fire, woman is like water. It takes her a long time for a woman to come to the boil, and a long time for her to cool. Whereas a man, boom, he comes, you can set light immediately, and then, you can be put out immediately. So, yes, I'm just going to breathe. Just invite you to breathe. So, next thing, the last thing really I'm going to share today is just to do with who were we taught by? And I see that this is education full stop, but, who were you taught by at school? So for me, my sexual education came from a 12-year-old. And it was like our sexual education was, they would ask us questions like, what's a 69? What's, some quite horrific things, and it's like, and if you didn't know, they'd laugh at you, but eventually you found out what these things were. So it's like, for me, they were the experts. They're 12-year-old boys, and so I was 11, they were 12, and they were the experts teaching me about sex. Sure, we had classes, biology classes, but no one taught us about sex. So therefore, where did I learn? Really, through looking at pornographic magazines, from asking questions of these 12-year-olds. But it was like you had to come across like you knew what you were talking about. And they didn't know, so therefore we didn't know. So when we came into relationships, like, I had no idea what to do. So I think, that's another thing about sex is, we have to educate ourselves now. If you are, post-boarding school, or I would say this is men in generally, is like, we have to learn about sex. We have to learn about, love making. and learning from the tantric traditions or the Taoist traditions. There's some amazing teachings there about how we can, reawaken the body, and enjoy it, getting back into joy. So that's just some reflections really about that. So I think it's, probably could talk for a lot longer. It's probably a book in itself about this. So if you have any questions, you find this useful, then please let me know. And, any other topics about boarding school you'd like me to talk about, or anything that's not clear in this video, or anything that is clear or an insight, please comment below, or you're welcome to message me. Find me on Facebook or on my website. And like I say, I do men's circles every 2 weeks. The next one is tomorrow night, so you're welcome to join us. Okay, many blessings.